Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at some two-step unit conversion problems. And so the first one we're going to look at is it's asking us to convert 3 meters into inches. If we look up at our unit conversion table, there's no direct conversion that will convert meters directly to inches. We do, however, have a conversion that will take our centimeters and convert it to inches. And we do know that we can convert meters to centimeters as well. So we're initially going to start out and we're going to convert meters to centimeters. So that's going to be our first step. And then we're able to take our centimeters and convert it into inches. So we're going to do it in 2 steps. So this first step here is we're going to go from meters to centimeters. So step 1, I'm going to take my meters, convert to centimeters. So if I look up at my unit conversion chart, we can say that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So then I'm going to take my 3 meters that I have up here on the top, and I'm going to multiply it by conversion factor. So because I have meters right here, I also want to put the number that's associated with meters on the bottom. So I'm going to put 1 meter on the bottom here, and I'm going to take 100 centimeters to put on top here. I'm also going to put a 1 under my 3, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to multiply. My units of meters cancel out, so I'm left with centimeters. And then I'm initially taking my numerators and multiplying them together. So 3 times 100 is just 300, and my units are centimeters. If I multiply my 2 bottom numbers together, it's just going to be 1, so I'm going to leave it out. So then my next step, I have 300 centimeters here, and now I want to convert that into my inches. So that's my second step, taking my centimeters and converting it into inches. So second step, taking 300 centimeters, and now I'm more than able to convert that to inches. So my unit conversion for converting centimeters to inches is this unit conversion up here. 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. Some people also like to just round it to 2.5 centimeters. So that's what I'm going to do today, but you're free to use whichever conversion that you would like, the 2.54 or the 2.5. So I'm going to take my 300 centimeters and I'm going to multiply it by the conversion factor. So if centimeters is here, I also want the centimeters to be on the bottom. So I'm going to put 2.5 centimeters on the bottom and the 1 inch that corresponds with it on the top here. So I'm going to put a 1 on my denominator, cancel out my 2 centimeter units, and now I'm just going to multiply my numerators and my denominators. So 300 times 1 is just 300, and my units are inches. And then I'm going to multiply 1 by 2.5, and I just get 2.5. No units because they've canceled themselves out. And now I'm just taking 300 and I'm dividing it by 2.5. So if I plug that into my calculator, I end up with 120 inches, and that's going to be my final answer. Okay, so it just takes 2 steps. We kind of use centimeters as like a mediator that we can use to get from meters to inches. So 2-step problem, that's the first one. Okay, so now let's try B. In this question, we're going from feet to centimeters. So it's similar to the last one in the fact that we already used a centimeter conversion, but now we're going from feet to centimeters. And there's no conversion that allows us directly to go from feet to centimeters. We can, however, get centimeters from inches. So we do know that. And we do know that we can go from feet to inches. So we're going to also do a 2-step problem here because we're going to go from feet to inches first. And then second, we're going to take those inches, whatever my answer is from here, and we're going to convert that to centimeters. So my first step is I'm taking my 8 feet and I'm converting it to inches. So if I look up in my unit conversion chart and I want to see any conversion that goes from feet to inches, and that's this one up here. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. I'm going to write that down. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So that one's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 8 feet and I'm going to multiply it by my conversion factor. So if I take feet over here, I want it to cancel out with feet down here. So my 1 foot is going to go on the bottom and my 12 inches is going to go up here on the top. So now I'm going to add a 1 under my 8 just to make it easier for me to multiply. I'm going to cancel out my feet because I want to be left with inches. I'm multiplying my numerators together. So if I do 8 times 12, I'm going to get 96, and my units will be in inches. 1 times 1 is just 1, so I'm not going to put a denominator on that. So I'm left with 96 inches. So now that I have inches, it's really easy for me to go to centimeters. So I'm going to take my 96 inches, and I'm going to convert that to centimeters. So if I look up in my table, I have my conversion from inches to centimeters right here. So I know that 1 inch is equal to approximately 2.5 centimeters. So now I'm just going to go in and take my 96 inches and multiply it by this conversion factor. I want 1 inch to be on the bottom so that I can cancel them out. And I'm going to put 2.5 centimeters here on the top. So now I'm dividing my 96 just by 1, just giving it a denominator, of 1, just to make it easier to multiply, canceling out my inches, and then I just multiply my numerators, which if I take 96 and multiply it by 2.5, I should get 240 centimeters. And then if I multiply my denominators, I just get 1, no units, so I'm not going to worry about it. So my final answer to this problem would be 240 centimeters. Okay, so now we're going to jump into another two-step problem, but it's going to be slightly different than the last two we just did. So this question's asking us to take 418 feet, and we want it to be in yards and feet. So essentially, we want it to read something yards and something feet. So the first thing we're going to have to do is currently we have our full units in feet. So our largest is going to be yards. So we first, step 1, is we want to convert 418 feet into yards. And then whatever's left over, we are then able, oops, sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me just go back. So I want to take my 418 feet and convert it to yards. And then I'm able to take what's left over and convert it to feet. Because the whole purpose of this is to try to get whole numbers if we can. Sometimes we can't, but we'll try. So if I were to look up in my unit conversion chart and see where I can convert from feet to yards. So if you look here, we'll see that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So now I'm able to take my 418 feet and multiply it by conversion. So because feet is here on the top, I also want feet to be on the bottom so they cancel out. So my 3 feet goes on the bottom and my 1 yard goes on the top. I'm going to put a 1 under my 418 just to make it easier to multiply. My feet cancel. I multiply my numerators together. So I get 418, but my units are now yards. Multiply my denominators together, and I get 3, no units because I canceled them out. And then if I take 418 and divide it by 3, you should get 139.33 yards. So then I'm going to ask myself, how many full yards do I have? I have 139 full yards, so that's what's going to go up here in the blank. So I have, 139 full yards. Now what I want to do is I want to also convert my leftover 0.33 yards into feet. So my step 2 is I'm going to take my 0.33 yards and I'm going to convert that into feet. So if I look up here once again, I can see that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So I'm taking my 0.33 yards and I'm multiplying it by my conversion factor. So yards is here on the top, so I want to put the 1 yard on the bottom so that they cancel, and I put my 3 feet here on the top. I'm going to put a denominator of 1 here to help me cancel out my units and make it easier for me to multiply. So my yards cancel out. I multiply my numerators, and I get 0.99, and it kind of continues on. So I'm just going to round that to 1, and my units are in feet. So essentially, my final answer is 139 yards and 1 foot. Okay, and the last problem we're going to do today is we're going to look at converting 68.8 yards into yards, feet, and inches. So essentially, similar to the last question, our final answer is going to be comprised of so many yards, so many feet, but now we're also adding so many inches. So the first thing we're going to do is when you look at 68.8 yards, right off the bat, we have 68 whole yards. So that's going to be our answer for yards here. So we do already have 68 yards. But what we do have left over is we have decimal 8 yards left over. So step one is we're going to take the 0.8 yards and we're going to convert it to the next unit, which is feet. So if I look up at my unit conversion table, I'm going to notice that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So then it makes it easier for me to convert. So I'm going to take my 0.8 yards and I'm going to multiply it by my conversion factor. So because I have yards here on the top, I also want to put yards on the bottom. So the 1 yard is going to go on the bottom here. My 3 feet is going to go on the top. I'm going to put a 1 under my 0.8 just to make it easy to multiply. Cancel out my yards, multiply my numerators together, and I end up getting 2.4 feet. And then 1 times 1 is just 1, so I'm not going to use a denominator here. Okay, so right off the bat, now I can see that I have 2 full feet, so that's going to go up here as part of my answer. And the next step is I want to convert what's left over. I have 0.4 feet left over, so I'm going to convert that to inches. So my step 2 is I'm going to take whatever's left over, which is 0.4 feet, and now I'm going to convert it to that last unit, inches. Sometimes we end up with a whole number, which is essentially what we want, but not all the time do we end up with a whole number at the end, and that's fine if we don't. So right now I'm going to look back up in my chart to see what I can do to convert from feet to inches, and we see that one right here. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So now I'm going to take 0.4 feet, and I'm going to multiply by that conversion factor. Because I have feet on the top, I want the feet on the bottom, so 1 foot goes down there, and my 12 inches will go up here on the top. Put a denominator of 1 to help me multiply, cancel out my feet, and here I'm going to multiply my numerators together, and if I take 0.4 and multiply it by 12, I get 4.8, and my units are in inches. 1 times 1 is just 1, so I'm not going to put it as a denominator there. So my final answer for inches is 4.8. Most of the times we end up with all whole numbers, but sometimes we don't, and that's fine. If we get to the last unit and it's a decimal, well, you can just put your decimal answer in that last blank, so that's fine. You can leave it like that.